It looks like committee member Breeding is not yet here, but we do have a quorum. We still have a minute though. But just a heads up, Eric.
All right, should we go ahead and call the start of the meeting? 7:30. So Lizzie, you want to go ahead and do the roll call?
Okay. Committee member Breeding is not yet here. Vice Chair Choi.
Here.
Committee member Cooper.
Here.
Committee member Peterson.
Here.
Committee member Way.
Here.
Chair Larson.
Here.
Perfect.
All right, so we can have the approval of the minutes. I hope everybody had a chance to look over the minutes Lizzie sent out. Any comments or questions on the minutes?
And just as a quick note, I did yesterday send out an amended minutes from September 16th because I noticed I missed committee member Breeding's vote on item 6-2. So I changed it to reflect that. So I hope you all saw those minutes. That was the only change, but
okay.
I sent those out yesterday.
Nick, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, so on the discussion and the recommendations regarding the EBCE fallback for Brilliant 100, I remember we went through sort of formulating that motion, but I'm not happy with it being called nuclear option. So I think the recommendation number 2, which was staying with the Brilliant 100 carbon-free with added nuclear content, to replace lost large hydro that's not available. And the lost hydro is currently at 25%. So I wasn't clear. I think it was brought up, but I wasn't clear what the total final possible maximum nuclear content would be, nuclear power content would be on our recommendation number 2.
So to address those comments, the reason we referred to it as the nuclear option is because EBCE, that's their terminology for it, how they're presenting it to other communities and to the board. So I think we should stick with that language just because I don't want to blur the lines between their termisstate and ours.
Okay, I didn't realize that. Yeah, well,
that's fine. And then
it misstates that it's not 100% nuclear, so it's kind of weird.
Yeah, and we don't actually know yet what the nuclear content percentage will be of that nuclear option. That will be determined by PG&E determinations that I believe we won't know until after December 31st.
Okay. That's all I had.
All right, so do we have can we have a proposal to approve the minutes?
I move we approve both the September 16th and September 30th minutes.
Oh, I apologize.
Do we have to do that individually?
Sorry, this is my mistake. We do have a member of the public that has raised their hand. Sorry for not catching that earlier, but do you mind, Eric, if I allow them to talk?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
No. Patrick.
Okay.
For approval of the minutes? Why would the public comment on approval?
I think there's some confusion. Patrick if your hand is raised, okay, great. We do not have any members of the public commenting on the minutes. Sorry to interrupt the motion. You may proceed.
Okay. Are we going to do both to Tom's question, are we going to do the 16th and 30th all in one motion?
That would be fine.
Okay.
So I move that we adopt the minutes from September 16th and the September 30th meeting.
Okay. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second?
Okay. Lizzie, you want to take a vote?
Yes.
Or do we need to vote on this?
Yes.
Okay.
Looks like we're still waiting on committee member Breeding. Vice Chair Choi,
Aye.
committee member Cooper,
Aye.
committee member Peterson,
Aye.
committee member Way,
Aye.
Chair Larson.
Aye.
All right.
Great. Thank
Approved.
you. And so now we have the time for public comment. If there's anybody from the public that wants to speak on anything that's not on the agenda, if you have comments about agenda items, we should save those for when we get to the agenda item. But if you have anything that you want to say, anything about not on the agenda, this is the time for you to have your time.
Okay.
Hi, good
Jeremiah,
evening. This is
you're allowed to talk.
Jeremiah. Yes, this is Jeremiah. Good evening, everybody. So climate action, right? This is obviously a big deal. It's the air we breathe, and that's how we survive. So this is, really important issue that we all face every day with every breath of air we take. Climate action refers to all these fires, all the smoke in the air, all the pollution from diesel, propane, coal, bunker fuel. I mean, that's what these ships burn, right? So I've mentioned before, if we could write some letters to Congress about these shipping companies having a cleaner fuel. They just did have a cleaner fuel this year, but it's still not good for the environment. I mean, if you have done some studies or some research, one of those ships, one vessel, let's say a cruise ship, one of those cruise ships runs on bunker fuel. It's called fossil fuel. And that's about 1 million cars. So we could all improve and put all these electric stations up and buy Teslas. But the root of all this climate action, which you guys are aware of, is these big industrial burning all this stuff. So if we could write some letters to the senator, even to our own mayor, and if we get the senator, the mayor, and the governor involved, state senator, that's a pretty powerful three. So I know these city council meetings, they keep pushing stuff till next agenda and, oh, we'll take care of it next year. Well, they're not even going to be in council next time. So let me know what we all could do together. I mean, in Albany, to have climate action a big deal, because one thing I noticed is these AC transit buses zooming down Solano. I've seen black exhaust come out these AC transit buses. So one point of interest, something very easy we could do is we could write AC Transit a letter, and we could say, hey, AC Transit, your dust and your exhaust and your climate is really ruining our city in Solano Avenue. So we should push AC Transit for cleaner burning cleaner burning buses, right in the heart of our community. And the other thing that we can't do here is they're driving way too fast, right, up and down Solano. So the biggest thing we can do is push for more bicycles and proper bike lanes, not on the sidewalks of Solano, and just greener things. So keep up the good work, everybody.
Thanks a lot, Jeremiah. Appreciate you calling in and reminding us of those things. In fact, Nick and I were just talking about the shipping issue that you had brought up a couple times. So I really appreciate you bringing that to our attention. We'll see what we can do about tackling some of those items. And then the carbon-free transportation is certainly a big part of the climate action plan that we've already got here. So appreciate the input. Yeah, Max?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Jeremiah for your sentiments. I just wanted to mention one comment on regulation. So there is a regulation from the state to transition to 100% zero emission transit buses by 2040. And so the phase in would be starting in 2029. New transit buses would need to be zero emissions. So just FYI, that's kind of a step in the right direction.
Good, thanks.
I don't see any other hands raised, but just as a reminder, if you do want to make public comment on an item that's not on the agenda, click the raise your hand button on Zoom. I'm not seeing any other hands go up.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we'll move on to the announcements. So Lizzie, you want to take it away with the announcements?
Yes. Okay, let me prepare here. Sorry, I'm just pulling up the right screens. Why? Here we go. Okay. So for announcements, we'll start off with sustainability events and resources, then move to a quick update on the EBCE item, give a quick update on sustainability projects that have been things we've been working on since we last met, and then an update on the power charge indifference adjustment. Sorry, I missed the word charge in there, which is also known as the PCIA. First, sustainability events and resources. Tomorrow morning, I'm very excited. I will be giving a presentation on the benefits of composting and compost tips to the Albany Senior Center. That will be at 10 a.m. Via Zoom. Then in December, we are partnering with the City of Berkeley on an event titled EV 101. The City of El Cerrito did one last year that we promoted in Albany. This year we'll be partnering with the City of Berkeley as well as another number of other cities to sponsor the event. But the tentative date for that is December 9th. So I encourage you all to attend. I'm excited for that virtual event. Drive Clean Bay Area is doing another group buy this fall season.
Lizzie, is that going to be a daytime event or evening event?
Evening. It'll likely be around 6 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. I'll send more definitive details once we have them. Then, as I mentioned, Drive Clean Bay Area is doing another group buy opportunity this fall. If you're interested, look up Drive Clean. I believe it's drivecleanbayarea.org, but I've also been including information about the group buy opportunity in our social media and in the e-news. And then also in the e-news and in our social media, we've been promoting the EBCE Resilient Home Program, which is offering a group buy opportunity for solar and storage packages. For our EBCE update, the CAC's recommendation went to a city council discussion on October 5th, 2020. And although the council didn't make a formal decision, there was general agreement with the CAC's recommendation, which would be the first option would be to remain on Brilliant 100 for all accounts if there is no rate increase and if that product doesn't disappear. If that is not the case, the second option would be to transfer all accounts onto the nuclear option. And then the third option, if both the first two are not available, would be to put residents on Renewable 100, care, FERA, and medical baseline customers on Bright Choice, and municipal accounts on Renewable 100. A letter, because the council expressed interest in this nuclear option, the council will be discussing and potentially approving a letter to send to the EBC board in support of having a nuclear option as an option when the EBCE board makes their decision about what products will be available on November 18th. So that will go to our council on November 2nd. We are planning to take a discussion and potential decision for what the default product will be, again, in a ranked choice style, because that's what the timeline permits. We're planning to take that discussion to council on November 16th. And also, I just wanted to remind everyone that I did forward a letter about the nuclear allocation and nuclear option from EBCE, or with EBCE. I forwarded an email to the CAC on October 25th. So I hope you all had an opportunity to take a look at that. Sustainability projects update, where Michelle is hard at work on the green building ordinance. We're planning to take that to planning and zoning in December, and then hopefully also to council in December. So we'll have a meeting in between there, and I'll give you more details as they come. We are working on the EV action plan, looking into what right now the narrative is, and then also what the potential actions on the table are. And again, as I mentioned, kind of in support of the EV action plan and general EV adoption goals in Albany, we'll be hosting this EV 101 event in December. Michelle will show you later this evening our exciting update on the electrification website. We've been tinkering with that for a few months now, and we're hoping to have it launched later this winter. We'll be also tonight receiving a presentation from Community Climate Solutions, where we'll give a little bit more insight into our plan for a new outreach campaign and engagement plan for Carbon-Free Albany. And then, as always, we're continuing to do outreach in the realm of sustainability and climate action. And we have some exciting virtual programming in mind, including the Composting 101 event and EV 101, and potentially more to come. As a reminder, all committee seats are open for reappointment after the new council is seated in November. So if you're interested in staying on the Climate Action Committee, you will have to reapply via this link. There's also information in our e-news each week until the seats are filled. Now for a quick update on the PCIA, which again stands for the Power Charge Indifference Adjustment. It's also known as the exit fee. For me, that helps me kind of understand what it is. So basically what it is, it's very complicated, and there are a lot of experts out there who can dive really deep. I will not be diving that deep today, but I just wanted to give a general update about what it is and what East Bay Community Energy and other CCAs are doing to address it. It is a charge on customers that switch from an investor-owned utility such as PG&E to a CCA, such as EBCE. And the charge on these customers' bills is intended to cover the cost that PG&E accrues prior to the customer leaving for a third-party electricity provider. So basically, PG&E enters into long-term energy generation contracts with different energy plants and energy providers. And when customers leave PG&E, it leaves the costs of those long-term contracts on the customers that are still a part of PG&E's customer base. But with the introduction of CCAs, more and more customers are leaving PG&E, which leaves these cost burdens on PG&E customers, because someone has to pay the fees for those energy generation contracts, and it falls to the customers. So to kind of level the playing field, the CPUC has ruled that a power charge indifference adjustment, aka the exit fee, will be applied to customers who have exited the investor-owned utility, PG&E, to cover the costs to make sure that those who still remain on PG&E are not burdened.
Hey, Lizzie, is that, sorry to interrupt, is that a fee, like a one-time fee, or is that like a monthly charge? Monthly
charge based on your energy usage.
Okay, so, but in that sense, just to be really picky, it's not really just a fee, it's like a charge. I mean, it's not, an exit fee sounds like it's like you have to pay like $50 to leave, but this is continual, right?
Yes,
okay.
It's monthly on your bill. Yes,
okay.
Thanks for clarifying. Exit charge, maybe we should say that. If you want to know more about the breakdown of an energy bill, go to ebce.org/understand-your-bill. So as I mentioned, the California Public Utilities Commission determines how the PCIA will be calculated. And the CPUC is actually legally obligated to ensure that customers leaving the investor-owned utility for CCAs don't carry that or don't leave the burden on the customers who remain in the IOU. And that's partially an equity thing because not all jurisdictions have CCAs. So let's say you're in a jurisdiction where your only option is the investor-owned utility. It would be unfair, the CPUC has ruled, to require that people who do not have that choice pay the burden for people who do have the choice. And the PCIA changes periodically in response to changes in energy market values and prices of power. But recently, PG&E has requested a PCI increase that would potentially result in a 4% increase on CCA customers starting in 2021. So in response, in September 2020, CalCCA, which is an organization that represents all the CCAs in California, drafted a letter to the CPUC in response to this PCIA increase request, and called upon the CPUC to reduce the PCIA to make sure that it would not increase bills for customers by 4%, and also to smooth out PCIA volatility because the PCIA really fluctuates, has the potential to be very low and also to be very high. And advocates are calling on the CPUC to make it so that it won't be as volatile and the calculation process will be a little bit more transparent. So Albany was actually represented in that letter because we are a jurisdiction we're under East Bay Community Energy's, under the East Bay Community Energy CCE, and we have a board member on the EBCE board. The board approved signing on to a letter from CalCCA, sorry, lots of acronyms here, in support of the CPUC taking a second look at the PCIA increase request and the PCIA in general. There has no been response yet, and that ruling has not happened. That was a very brief overview, potentially very confusing. It's a confusing topic, but I feel that the city of Albany has been represented in this issue because the issue went to the EBCE board and EBCE is tracking this. The board members are aware of it. So we're represented in this letter. So that is my update on the PCIA, and that concludes my announcements for the evening.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah,
Sure.
go ahead, Nick.
So I was a little lost on when the city council is going to, I heard November 2nd as a date, and then I heard November 16th as a date for
Yes.
discussing the recommendation from us on the three options that we want to put forward to EBCE that Albany supports.
Yes. Yeah, I apologize if that was confusing. On November 2nd, we'll be taking a letter to the city council, which basically would say, if the council is to approve it, the city of Albany is interested in the nuclear power option. Other cities, such as Hayward and Pleasanton, have already sent these letters to the EBCE board, and it's not saying that we're choosing the nuclear option. It's saying that the city of Albany wants that option to be on the table in case we want that to be our default product. Does that make sense?
So November 2nd is the letters presented to the council. They then vote on whether they will send it. And then what's November 16th?
Yes, they'll vote on when they would send it on November 2nd. November 16th, we'll be bringing back the discussion of what would the council like the default product to be? Because we can't pick just one, because we won't know all the options on the table, we'll ask them to pick a first choice, a second choice, and a third choice. So it'll be very similar to the discussion the CAC had in September. But this discussion will be the council solidifying their three choices and making that recommendation to the EBCE board that would be our default product.
will there be any update from EBCE whether there will be, what the options will be?
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
Well, what we were told is we don't know if there might be an option, which was our number one choice, which was Brilliant 100 to stay the way it is, but we don't know yet. So when the city makes this vote on the 16th, will any more decisions or solidity on what the options will be, including a potential nuclear power segment, be available when the city makes that decision to say what our priorities are for the city?
They will not be. The EBCE board is not set to decide what the options for 2021 will be until November 18th. But because of EBCE's timeline, unfortunately, they can't accept a recommendation from our council for our new default product any later than December 1st. So our last opportunity to take it to the council is November 16th. So our council will be deciding our top 3 options for a default product before the EBCE board decides what the potential option, what the options will be. Sorry, this is a little bit confusing, but basically similar to what we asked the CAC to do, we'll be asking the council. It's pick a first choice. If the first choice isn't available, pick a second choice. If the second choice isn't available, go with the third choice. And that's the decision.
Right, so the choices are the 3 that we recommended. Are they going to take other choices that other people are recommending, or come up with their own choices that they make off the top of their head?
I don't believe any new options will become available between now and the council's discussion. Yeah, it will be Brilliant 100 as is, but subsidized by other electricity products. So no rate increase, no change in power content. Or it will be Brilliant 100 will increase anywhere between 2 and 5%, or Brilliant 100 will be eliminated. There will potentially be a nuclear option or not, and then there would be Bright Choice and Renewable 100. So there are a lot of potentials, but we are navigating it the best we can.
Yeah, so I guess the gist of my question is, will there be other people or entities advising the city council on what choice to make besides what the Climate Action Committee has advised?
Members of the public are welcome to make public comment, but the CAC's recommendation still stands. We haven't taken it to any other committees or commissions.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Max, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did have a question. So the nuclear option, so-called, or the nuclear, yeah, I guess it is the option. That would only apply for a few years, right? Because Diablo Canyon is going offline in 2025. So this is just for 3-4 years, right?
Yes.
Okay. I had a comment also. Is that okay, Eric? Yes.
My mute's.
So the comment was just as you were going through the announcements, it strikes me that the issue of equity may be increasingly important. So, for example, in the context of resilience, to put in a PV system and storage, even with rebates, is not cheap. And similarly, EVs for a new EV is also not cheap. So, there are, whatever it is, 8 or 9% of families on care. There's COVID, which is putting people in more, insecure positions. We do want to support an aggressive transition to a cleaner energy future, but we don't want to, leave people behind either. So I do think it's important for the committee to take that up as a challenge, within the EV 101 plan, within the resilience plans or proposals, even electrification of going to more heat pump based appliances. If you're doing that, you're also leaving the remaining customers who are on natural gas with a higher fixed cost to cover. So there are a lot of equity issues embedded in this whole transition. And so I think we should, maybe at some point consider a subcommittee or just, bring it in to our discussions because I think it is important. I mean, one just side comment on that is that within the community, the environmental justice community, there's been more discussion about resiliency hubs, which is to say if there's a power loss or excessive smoke, there's a safe place to go as a community member, like maybe it's your library, maybe it's City Hall, maybe it's the school or the high school, which has guaranteed power, guaranteed electricity, et cetera. So, those are just things which are coming up and are in play across, across the state.
All right, thanks.
Lizzie,
Oh, sorry.
you mentioned a letter, October 25th letter. Was that just the incorrect date? Were you referring to the letter that you forwarded to us the other day?
Yes, I'm referring to the letter regarding nuclear power that I sent the other day. Was sent on the 25th. And Eric, we do have a member of the public that would like to make comment if you're ready for public
Okay,
comment.
sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Jessica, you're able to talk.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Tovar. I'm the coordinator of the East Bay Clean Power Alliance, and I work for an organization called the Local Clean Energy Alliance. Excuse me, I just went up a flight of stairs. Whew, okay. I wanted to make a comment. I submitted the letter that you're referring to. And pretty much, our position is that we should be doing everything we can to keep East Bay Community Energy nuclear free. As you may or may not know, that the state is actually phasing out nuclear energy, rightfully so, since the disaster of Fukushima that happened not so long ago in Japan. And well, one of the things that, I have to say is that there seems to be a huge bias kind of funneling city representatives into feeling like they have to take the nuclear energy. And the reality is you don't. So what our position is we're actually proposing that East Bay Community Energy subsidize Brilliant 100. It costs $3 million per year for Brilliant 100 to keep it. And just so you know, East Bay Community Energy's net surplus for this last year is $82 million. Collectively with the year prior, it's $149 million. That's the net surplus, okay? So what's actually happened at the last board meeting in September is that they actually created a rate stabilization fund for $12.7 million. That's just to show that they're able to actually subsidize Brilliant 100 and continue the product should your cities choose to want to keep it without adding nuclear energy. And so I just want to emphasize that I really wish I had a lot more time to talk to you about the PCIA and how this all factors in. It's a very complicated issue. So I really urge you to ask me questions. If you have my email in that letter that was forwarded to you, I would love to, answer any questions. This is actually a really serious issue because if any city says that they would take nuclear energy, that would show up on the power content label of the entire program, because the community choice program is a joint powers authority. It is not city by city. What they're talking about is marketing it to each city and telling every city what they want to hear. If, for example, Berkeley doesn't want nuclear, they're going to tell them that their city's content label has no nuclear. But the reality is, this is a community choice program made up of the entire county and the city of Tracy. So just one city taking nuclear energy mars the entire program. I will stop right there because I see my time is up. Thank you.
All right, thanks for the comments there.
Okay.
We have another hand.
Jeremiah, you should be able to talk.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, this is Jeremiah, and I do support what she just said, and obviously the Brilliant 100, right? It's brilliant. I mean, brilliance in the name. So, you got to go with the flow on that. And this whole nuclear energy thing obviously isn't long term. It's all about solar, right? I mean, solar panels or something on every single home. So they want to spend all these millions of dollars on all this climate East Bay energy. Well, they need to put a solar panel on everybody's home just to make up the difference. And then another solar panel next year. And so I support and I second her public comment. And I really hope that public comment is listened and appreciated, because this is really what the community wants. And I support her again because she's here in this meeting to voice her 3 minutes. This is the proper time and the proper place. I mean, the government's listening, right? The government, the city, you have these meetings. You do open it for public comment, for somebody to say something with some passion. And she's done a lot of research, and it's all right. So I understand that you guys are listening because you have these public meetings. So if you're listening, listen to what she's saying. And I hope you support her, because everything she's doing is right. And I know you guys might support her as well. And I just want to second that. You know, she's obviously taking the lead. She's obviously spearheading, you know, this movement. She's out there on the front lines, you know, at rallies or wherever she can. And at least we got that one voice letting us know what's going on. Think of everybody in this committee. She's probably educating some of us about things we didn't even know before she said something. So I encourage you to reach out to her email. I do encourage you to take the time to give her a call back, you know, and just some more good communication, because that's what the city's about, public outreach. You guys want to do surveys all the time. All these meetings, you guys got to do surveys. Well, you got the best survey right in front of you. I may not know everything like she does, but I use my public comment to support the community. And she's very resourceful, and she's a resource. She's definitely not a liability. She's a resource to our community, and I hope we tap into that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any
Yeah,
other?
I do not see any other hands raised.
Okay. All right. All good. All good thoughts. All right. That was announcements, right?
Yes.
Okay. Any further questions or comments from the CAC members on the announcements? Okay. I don't see anybody jumping up, so we can. Lizzie, we're ready to move on to presentations?
Yes.
Okay.
Great. I'd like to introduce Patrick Journey from Community Climate Solutions. As many of you know, we have the Carbon Free Albany platform, which is a platform created thanks to Community Climate Solutions, which is the nonprofit that hosts these sites and helps cities create them. And tonight we invited Patrick so that he could have a discussion with us about what's gone well in other communities to promote their platforms, lessons learned, and then also to kind of spark, to plant the seeds so that we can continue the conversation about how we can expand carbon-free Albany in our community. So without further ado, Patrick, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you so much, Lizzie. Yeah, it's really good to be here. Thank you all for having me to explain a little bit about the ways that we can really engage our residents on climate solutions. So I'll just quick introduce myself and then go over a little bit of some exciting updates on the platform since you all started using it. And then I'll talk about some of the different engagement strategies that we found really successful with our other partners. So I am the city program manager. So I work with our 30+ different cities and counties that use our platform to engage their residents on climate solutions. And I have a long history of community organizing. I spent 7 years as a community organizer, helping found a food rescue nonprofit and then working on environmental and public health policy campaigns. And I'm really excited to utilize that experience to help make sure that our cities can effectively engage their residents to achieve the greatest reduction in emissions that we can reach for. And the mission in Albany is pretty clear. So in the city of Albany, I know over 60% of emissions are in the hands of our residents, just from 5 common daily activities that we all participate in, whether that's heating or electricity, food, waste, or transportation. And what's great is that for the first time in history, we have the opportunity to make meaningful changes in the way that we live our lives that have really significant impacts on our carbon. And these options are becoming more and more affordable and accessible to everyday people. And so we built this site as a way for people to really learn and understand the ways that they can change their carbon footprint. And the goal of the platform is really to build community around sustainability and have everyone work together to accomplish a goal that's greater than themselves. So I am going to share my screen and just show a couple of updates on the site, and then just talk a little bit about engagement strategies. I'm happy to take questions as they come, or we can wait till the end, whatever your preference is. So just a couple of exciting updates on the site. The big change is on the action grid. So we have over 73 actions currently on the site, and we are about to add in 12 more actions in the food and waste section. So that will be coming within the month. And then we're going to add an entirely new category around emergency preparedness and resilience as well, which should be on site by the end of the year. So we're really fleshing out our actions to incorporate a lot of different kinds of ways that we can be more sustainable. And we've sorted it so it's really easy to figure out what actions are relevant to you or important to you if you really care about water conservation, or if you are a youth in the community and can't necessarily buy an electric vehicle. There's still a lot of things you can do to help affect climate change. And we've also built in a recommended actions way to sort your preferences. So if you just want to make as big of an impact as possible, and you don't care about the upfront cost or the time it takes, you can select those here, and then it sorts the ones that are most relevant. If you're most worried about savings and you can't spend over $50 on anything right now, but you have all the time, let's say you're not a renter, it sorts the categories that are most relevant to your needs as well. So that's a big update on what we've added onto the site. And then we've also built a lot of resources and materials for our community members. So this is both community groups and team leaders and individuals that want to use the site, as well as for our partners that are doing more of the driving the engagement on a larger scale. And so we've built an entire toolkit for our partners to run different engagement strategies, help set up creating an engagement plan, etc. And at the bottom here, there are some really exciting updates. So we actually worked with a Girl Scout group in Central California to build out a patch program. They actually wrote the whole thing. The Girl Scouts were super committed to this, which is really great. And it walks them through 3 different steps that they can take to get the climate patch itself. So first, it's discover using the website. And then connect, so figuring out the actions we can take and getting people to join your team, and then finally take action and make an impact, and go even further than just taking your own action by talking to your school or state representative. So that's one exciting resource we have that any local Girl Scout troop can use. And then we've also developed a whole array of curriculum with a local teacher that's designed by a teacher for a teacher, with really great materials that they can use in their classroom. So there's a couple of different versions that teachers can select. But for example, for the What is Your Carbon Footprint curriculum, it has both virtual modification as well as an asynchronous, so not in-person modification if they want to have it as an assignment without live instruction. and is meant to be really easy for teachers to just implement in their classroom without any prep on their own. So these walk through actually figuring out what your impact is and thinking about actions you can take with your family, and is a great way for schools and young people to engage meaningfully with carbon reduction. Right now, we live in a time where it's really easy to have a lot of climate anxiety. So this is a great way to have a positive way to think and talk about climate change and actually take actions that will make a meaningful difference. So before I talk about our engagement strategies and use some examples from our partner cities, I do just want to pause to see if anyone has any questions about any of the updates I've gone over.
Is what you're showing there that list of the activities, and is that in the website someplace? Is it in like is all this accessible through the website, through the Albany Carbon Free Albany website?
So the curriculum isn't on the website because it's very specific, like only a teacher would ever find this relevant. But we are encouraging all of our city and county partners to share this with any teachers in their community, and help make sure that they know this is a resource that they can have. And a lot of school districts have like set up curriculum that teachers can just access. And so one strategy is for the city representative or county representative to make sure that whoever's working on the curriculum knows this is a resource that they can use.
Okay, I actually meant like a step back and that the list of all the different things, not just the teaching thing.
Oh, this is not on the website because this is meant for someone who's running engagement for the platform. And most individuals who are on the website just want to, take action themselves. Right. But if a community group is interested in using this, we also have toolkits that we are putting on the website. We're just finalizing a video to actually explain how to use the platform. So we have toolkits that we're uploading shortly. So anyone who registers themselves as a community group or team leader will automatically get a toolkit that helps them learn how to run this in their own community. And it breaks it down into 3 steps.
Okay, so like our city staff would have access to this?
Yes, city staff have access to the entire toolkit.
Good.
And this is something that, since you all I know have been interested in helping implement the program, this is something that would totally be accessible to you. It's just not relevant for like a random user. Any other questions? Okay, great. So now I'm going to go over a presentation. So this is just so that there's some good visuals for everyone. Great. Present. All right, can everyone see this?
I did have a question, Patrick.
Oh, go ahead.
This is Max. Just in terms of the measures, you have things like EVs and I imagine like heat pumps for water heating. Are you starting to include new lower voltage kind of plug-in ready, so to speak, heat pumps?
So we don't have any specific links to individual like appliances because we want to make sure that there's no advertising or even a sense of advertising on the website. So for a heat pump, for example, we talk about like what the impact would be for the heat pump and how to set up a heat pump, but we don't want to make it feel like we're, attaching specific products to the website because we don't want this to be something where people feel like they're being sold something. It's more just meant to be a resource for people to then make it really easy for them to make that decision. So we talk about like choosing your new water heater. And so we walk them through a couple of steps and, talk about why they would maybe think about different sizes, for example. But we don't want to have any like specific products for any sense of like bias or trying to like sell a user on something. Does that make sense?
It does. I think what I'm referring to is slightly different. What I'm referring to is that if you have like an electric dryer, you may need to install a 240 volt outlet. So just a different outlet from your normal conventional 120 volt outlet. And typically most heat pumps are like that. They need 240 volt outlets, and they may potentially trigger a circuit electric panel upgrade, which can be like up to $4,000. So I'm just suggesting that recently on the marketplace, there are more 120 volt electric heat pump appliances
Oh, wow.
available for washer and dryer combos, for wall heater, heat pump replacements, for wall heater replacements, and also for mini split heat pumps. So it's a new development. I think I've heard that within the next 6 to 9 months, there will be 120 volt electric heat pump water heaters available. So it's not to recommend a particular vendor or a particular product, but just to say that this is an emerging option, which can be, you know, helpful for some people. It's not going to work for everybody. If you have 6 people in your family and, you know, a lot of hot water demand, it's probably not going to work, because these are going to be smaller capacity units. But it's just something that I'm recommending that you and your team can maybe look into. And I'd be happy to send you more information on it if that's helpful to you, to your team.
That'd be great. Yeah, the technology is always changing and improving, so we need to make sure we're staying up with that. So that's really great info. And if you have anything specific, I'd love to look over that. And we're always updating and editing the actions as like new information arises or new technology arises. So that would be great to make an edit to some of these, the home energy ones.
Thanks. It's exciting.
I had kind of a follow-up question on that, which is, when we first implemented this platform, one of the hopes I had is that it's a huge job to try to pull all this information about what's required for various actions into one place. And you guys have done a good job of that. Does it go as far as also linking in, say, local and state specific incentives that would be applicable to what you're doing? Do you guys research that and then make those links available?
Yes. Yeah. So obviously those resources depend on the specific county or city. So it's up to the cities to add them in, but Albany's done a really great job of adding in anything. And there's a lot of Bay Area ones. We have 10 different partners in the Bay Area. So at the bottom of any resource or any action is any relevant resources. So for example, just on this one, the heat pump, there's a rebate for $1,500. There's, and that's through this program. Then there's another rebate for $1,000 that we have in here. There's the Bay Run Home one. I can't see that because you all are in the way. Since I'm sharing the screen, I'm not sure how to move you all. And then there's information as well. So we plug in any sort of program, information, rebate, or credit into every single action, so that it's really easy to access all those resources. Any other questions, or should I move on? All right. And if questions arise later, I'm super happy to kind of circle back as well. So you all set some original goals for 250 homes engaged and 100 tons of CO2 reduced. And there's definitely been significant progress. It's about halfway there, but we haven't seen the big engagement that was obviously, you know, a goal and a desire for the program so far. And so in the last 4 years, working with our different cities and counties, we've learned through a lot of experience the best ways to engage individuals effectively on meaningful behavior change around carbon emissions. And so I'm going to walk through a couple of different examples and also just kind of the big picture as a way for everyone to kind of understand what works, since we've learned through this experience really what is effective or not. And so our big engagement strategy, I mean, just in general, there are many different kinds of engagement that are successful depending on the desired outcome. And with the Carbon Free Albany Challenge, we are asking people to do much more than just sign a petition or take a flyer or even attend a one-off event. We're asking individuals to register their home and take major actions to reduce their carbon footprint. And this type of behavior change requires more than just an email, a social media post, or attending one event to be successful. Those efforts are still helpful and a great way to add to engagement work, but we won't see the success with those just on their own. Research has shown time and time again that people are more likely to take action in or with their community and are more likely to change their behavior if they do so engaged through social interactions where they're sharing with each other and supporting each other to reach goals over time. This has led us to develop what we call a deep engagement strategy. We identify community partners, whether that's an informal book club, a Boy Scout troop, a workplace, a physical neighborhood, and build a partnership with a leader or set of leaders to run a challenge with their own community. The leader and the group take ownership of the challenge themselves and make space to do this, as opposed to us leading or presenting from the outside. So just to explain this a little more, the difference is, instead of me presenting to, let's say, the Kiwanis Club of Albany as an outside member, we would meet with a member of the organization, be it a leader or an impassioned member, and get them excited about running this challenge themselves with their own community with our support and coaching. So that is what we have found to be really successful, and the research on behavior change time and time again shows that an information-based campaign does not see the results as we would want compared to working with communities and, in a way, kind of community organizing on climate change. And so there are 6 main engagement strategies that we have guides for that we've developed in our toolkit. And they're all just slightly different because each group kind of has their own way that they work. So obviously with schools, we work with teachers, with the curriculum and youth leaders. There's community group engagement, whether that's a service organization or an environmental club, or a faith community or an HOA. There are teams, which is more of a smaller social unit. So like an informal community, like a set of neighbors, a group of family members, colleagues, friends, usually between 5 to 10 households. There are neighborhood challenges where people really identify with their specific neighborhood. This works well if Albany has different neighborhoods that people really kind of connect with, and there's unique ways of communication, like next door or a neighborhood committee. Community events and individual engagement, where a partner like the city or you all would host like a webinar that individuals could come to and basically form a community group out of around the challenge. And then workplace or corporate challenges, where employees, together with the support and direction of their supervisor or the director or CEO, run a challenge together. So each of these have different ways to be successful, and you all could decide maybe what strategies would be most effective for your community or most interesting for the kind of work that you want to do. And so I'm just going to go over 2 of the strategies that we found to be time and time again successful. So one example is the city of Fort Collins in the Front Range. So you can see here their goals. They actually just joined the program at the beginning of 2020, and they decided to run a 2-month challenge. And their goals were 250 households and 250 tons of CO2 reduced. And they were able to reach 580 homes and almost 500 tons of CO2. And they did that with 1 staff person who was working part-time on the engagement, full-time on other stuff. And they specifically used our community group engagement model. So this staff person identified community groups in the area, in the city, that were excited about running a challenge and helped support them in running this challenge with their own members. So they were massively able to overcome or exceed their goals. And this was during COVID. So they were able to do this all actually virtually, which is really exciting. So it goes to show how effective it can be to work with established communities that meet regularly, like Boy Scouts or Kiwanis group, and help support them in running a climate solutions challenge. Another example is our Charlottesville program. So they are in Virginia. They message it very differently. They talk about it as the Home Energy Challenge. And you can see the goals here: 400 households and nearly 600 tons of CO2. The way that they work is they use teams, so that informal group of 5 to 10 households, and they get people to decide to be a team leader, which involves hosting a power party. So all they have to do is get 5 to 10 households to jump on a Zoom event in the present or in the past, host like a house party or backyard barbecue. And then one of the staff members or volunteers that were helping run the Home Energy Challenge would come and help them, set up their accounts and think about a goal and make it really fun, do a quiz and a challenge. And then that social unit, that team, would work together over a set of weeks to accomplish actions and work together towards a collective goal. They also had one staff person part-time, and they worked to get about 10 teams participating in the challenge on average. And they actually got a lot of the teams in one of the years through the roller derby in Charlottesville. So different members of the roller derby opted in to be a team leader, and then they worked with those individuals and their social units. And they ran these 4-month-long challenges. This year they're running a 6-month-long challenge or 6-week-long challenge with each team on whatever timeline works for the team. So if they join in November, it'll be 6 weeks. If they join in April, it'll be 6 weeks, to really work and be more flexible with the craziness of now. I think the results are impressive, specifically with the CO2. We see a program that runs good engagement get about a 1v1 ratio of one household on average, getting about 1 ton of CO2 reduced on average. And for their active team members, so team members that took at least one action, they were able to reduce about 3 tons of CO2 per team member. And so with about 416 households engaged, they were able to reduce over 500 tons of CO2. And obviously, I mean, engaging individual households is great, but the big goal is making meaningful difference on our carbon emissions. So those were the big results of their challenge. And then I already went over this, but we have these guides to help walk through each of the different kinds of challenges. And we've seen success with all of these. Those are just the ones that are really easy to implement on a large scale and effective for most communities, regardless of their size or general makeup. So that is my presentation. And I'd be super open to hear any questions or comments or ideas that you all have around engagement and how to do it in Albany.
I think just a suggestion, I think a good way to structure this would be to ask Patrick questions first. Once we've concluded asking questions, we'll open it up to public comment, and then the committee can do a discussion of feedback.
Yeah, Nick?
Yeah, I have a question. So, Patrick, what were the populations of those cities that did, achieve their goals in short time and or exceeded them? I mean, those look like super successful and worked out really great. Mm-hmm. We've struggled a little bit more with it, trying to sort of launch it. So I'm just trying to get an idea,
Yeah.
These are much larger communities.
Fort Collins is like 130,000, 140,000, somewhat over 100. And then I don't know how big Charlottesville is. I think it's somewhat similar in size. I can look it up right now. But they haven't actually gone that deeply into the community based on how big they are, and they have a lot more ambitious goals this year. Charlottesville is 50,000. So it's about double the size of Albany. But with 20,000 residents, and that means probably around 5,000 to 10,000 households in Albany, there's definitely a lot that we can do. I mean, obviously you can't get all 10,000 households to join because that would require every single person opting in. But I think that we could probably reasonably reach between 200 to 1,000 households without doing a really crazy push in a given year.
Yeah. Well, we've had this for 2 years now, and the initial push got still under 100. Then we had, I think when we had our Spark fellow working on it, really focused, Bianca, she could really push it, and I think you also, Lizzie, did a couple really pointed meetings to try to get the word out, and then that did go up. But as you can see here, we started this push towards the end of last year to do 250. Of course, we got hit with COVID, but we're only up to 128. So anyway, actually what you've told me makes me feel a little better, because if we were double the size, we could kind of double this, we would be more in the 200-300 home range. So yeah, I think I think we really have a need to implement some of these engagement strategies. But that was my question. Thanks.
Yeah.
Other than the city staff, were there any costs, or are there typically any costs involved in these programs?
In running any of the engagement, there's literally no cost in running it except, staff hours. And obviously, Lizzie has a lot on her plate. And so one thing that we have found successful is also working with volunteers. So some of our cities that don't have, an engagement coordinator that's working themselves, will just work with interested community volunteers to implement these strategies. Because all of you know someone who's a teacher, or know someone who's a part of a faith community, or know someone who's part of, a workplace and has some sort of leadership role in Albany. And so it just requires really just meeting with those individuals and getting them excited about this challenge, which once someone hears about it, it's pretty common for people to be excited about it. It's pretty easy to do. And then helping make sure that that individual community member knows what to do to run this challenge in their group. So it's kind of almost deceivingly straightforward.
Yeah, Tom?
Curious whether it was more difficult with having to do Zoom meetings or rather than in person, or less difficult because people might be more willing to do a Zoom kind of thing rather than show up, walk or drive to some location. Do you have any information about that?
Yeah, I think they really present their own challenges. I think that especially in the spring, it was a very different setting. People were kind of overwhelmed with the state of the world and hadn't really adjusted. I think now a lot of community groups are searching for something to do to engage the resident or their members that they can do virtually. That's actually fun. And so I've been actually doing a lot of the engagement with the city of Fremont, and everyone is super excited to use this. I think that those community groups or individuals, sometimes they're less involved with their group because it's all online, and so there's less of a reason to join a meeting or an event. But I think it just brings its own challenges.
Thanks. Very impressive.
Yeah, Max?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment and then a question. My comment is that I would guess that Fort Collins and Charlottesville probably have a higher per capita GHG than Albany for a number of reasons. So, it's just not exactly apples to apples, but definitely the uptake is really impressive, and your model seems to make a lot of sense. My question is, in those communities or in general, are there some measures that you find are very, popular or effective, so to speak, or, common that, we might focus on, like maybe it's electric vehicles, or maybe it's, some other things that you just see are showing up, frequently as opposed to others?
That's a good question as well. I would have to pull the aggregate data. I don't have a clear answer on what is the most popular action. I do think that what's great about the site is that it offers actions for every different kind of person, whether you're thinking about how to change your garden or your yard versus, make those big purchases that have the most significant impact. We are at, because people are so excited, we're adding a lot of plastic pollution actions, even though they don't have a big carbon footprint, but just because that's something people are really excited about and will help them engage more with the site. So I would have to get back to you on a clear answer of what is the most popular action. We found very popular for having like themes. So sending out like this month, think about one action you can take to reduce your water impact. And that normally gets a lot of engagement because it makes it really simple and easy for someone to think about, okay, thinking about water, what can I do for that? So I guess I would say kind of focusing in on a kind of action is helpful in engaging the people to take more actions.
Thank you.
Hey, Tom. Yeah, sorry.
I actually have a question for city staff. Lizzie, have you folks discussed what your capabilities are for helping manage that, or are we going to need to rely on community volunteers?
Well, I think the latter is true regardless, because it sounds like that's a really great way to lead engagement in the community, is to engage volunteers and have it really come from the community and not just from staff. But as far as staff capacity, we do have an intern working with us for this semester, so potentially just through December. She's a Cal student. She only works a couple hours a week, but we're hoping to work with her to kind of brainstorm some opportunities based on CAC feedback to launch some engagement and potentially come up with a new engagement plan that then I would hope that community members, whether they be CAC members or other members of the community, take on the more community-centered role of talking to neighbors, talking to friends, organizing with community groups, because based on Patrick's presentation, what I've heard from Patrick, that's where change really happens. I think both Bianca and I have reached a point where we've sent out a lot of emails about Carbon-Free Albany and people aren't reading them anymore because they see email from Elizabeth Carrad regarding Carbon-Free Albany and they say, I've seen this before. So I think there's definitely an opportunity for staff and the community to collaborate to really expand this platform or the reach.
Thanks.
Yeah, Nick?
Since we do have a person that sounds like is focused at least 2 hours a week, what I'm wondering is, that, and this is a question for Patrick, is when you have I see this continually with Albany, is that Lizzie wears many hats, times really staffed. It's all volunteer effort. The volunteers are changing. There's not consistency. So you're continually having to restart the effort to, kind of do it. So what would really be is to do it effectively and have someone that was there and giving all the good suggestions because they've gone through it a few dozen times. Is that like a service that Community Climate Solutions can provide, or at least, it sounds like you have workbooks and written information, but do you actually do consulting?
I'd be happy to work with, like a community group that wants to do a lot on this and help coach or consult or, help them understand what is the best way to do it. So for example, if there was like an environmental organization in the community that wanted to run this as a campaign, I would be super happy to help make sure that they are, supported in doing that. So that's definitely something I'd be happy to help with as well. And I think you are right. It's challenging when you have someone who's like a fellow who's there for 9 months and they leave, because we know that community organizing is about building relationships. And if you're only there for a couple of months and then you leave, that can cause, a barrier to being successful. But for example, if you all, this I'm not asking you all to do this, but if you all just thought about one community group, whether that's a teacher or a faith community or a workplace that you would want to engage, it would be very little time on your own. But if you got 5 or 10 community groups that have, 100 members or 50 members to all sign up, you would see almost 1,000 households registered. So that could be one thing that, if a group of volunteers want to each do a little bit together, that we could see quite a lot of progress.
Yeah, Max?
Yeah, this is just following up on that theme of tapping into existing networks or existing groups, such as ACAC perhaps. But the question for Lizzie is, we have block leaders or emergency captains for many neighborhoods, like we have one in my neighborhood, and we meet maybe, we try to meet, at least once a year in the summer, and it's part of like the policemen come out to, it's sort of like a meet and greet. But I'm just thinking, we have tried, or I have tried to outreach to them in the past, but I think the city wasn't too open about sharing, a big list of 300 people's names with me. But at any rate, I'm just wondering, because if there are a few hundred of those, say 100 or even 300, and we were able to recruit maybe 10% of them, that's already 30. So it's just a thought, but I've always thought that that's, I mean, what is this but not an emergency? And this is emergency preparedness team leaders, normally thinking, in the context of earthquakes and maybe fire now or wildfire now. But anyways, it's just a thought.
Yeah, and to answer your question, I do believe the city has a list, but yes, there are privacy concerns with sharing information that people have not explicitly said is okay to share. But Nick Peterson might be able to speak more to this than I am. I do know that the CERT community meets quarterly, and potentially there's an opportunity there to have a conversation at one of those meetings and engage the attendees at that meeting, because those attendees too are already engaged. And it sounds like there are going to be some disaster preparedness, disaster resilience items coming onto the platform. So I think there's also quite a bit of overlap for that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's great. That was one of my reasons of also getting more involved in CERT, was I saw it as a venue, as community emergency response teams, is a venue to get out, since they were organizing neighborhood by neighborhood, but they've had their own challenges. Maybe we should make this a agenda item to continue this discussion of engagement, because I think it's really critical, and I think it's kind of hit a wall a little bit with COVID, and especially the election coming up. I know I've been spending a lot of my time on mass textings and campaigning and stuff like that. So I think if we can keep this platform engaged, I mean, we're paying for it, we should try to use it to its maximum potential. And I think keeping the engagement strategy for doing it would be great. I especially like that, since you do have a person focused on it, maybe if we can set up some meetings with them to just come up with an engagement plan. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, to answer your question, we will be bringing this back, I think, periodically, probably. We are planning to work with Patrick and our intern on a new community engagement plan. And that's something we're happy to discuss with the committee. I think down the road, now is not necessarily the time, because we're potentially going to have some committee reorganization and subcommittee reorganization. I don't think now's the time to form a subcommittee. That is something we could do. But before we dive deeper into that conversation, we do have a hand raised. So Eric, I don't know if you want to open it up to public comment, if everyone's done with questions.
I just had one more question for Patrick, and then we can take the public one. Patrick, so it's awesome that you guys have this community engagement sort of task list or guidelines on that city staff would have. But how does that practically work, as far as you got one city staff person? Do they have guidelines that they use to recruit community members, and then they give those sort of community leaders, here's your guidelines on how to get your groups together, and how do you motivate? Is that what you guys are providing as far as information? Is that how it works?
Okay, I think I understood your question. So yeah, the toolkits are meant to help whoever's running the program. So that could be a volunteer or a community group or a city staff person, whoever's driving engagement, trying to get the whole city engaged. That's meant to really help them with the best strategies. And we have sample template emails and agendas and launch meeting overviews, etc. So that's for whoever's running it. So that's totally open. If there's a really active member of you all who would want to get 5 community groups engaged, like that's for you. And then the community groups themselves, who are just participating in a challenge and getting their members signed up and involved and taking action, we also have specific resources that are relevant for them that will help them accomplish what they're doing, which is running the challenge in their group. So there's kind of different resources for different kinds of engagement with the platform, but it's all meant to make it really easy and accessible to engage effectively.
But I guess I got you said earlier on that this information's not on the website itself. So how does this information get disseminated to the right people?
Yeah. So basically, it's up to Lizzie. So if there's an excited volunteer, she can share it with that volunteer, and they can do what they want. And then any community group or leader, we're going to be attaching the actual toolkits and general resources that would be relevant to just like a normal community group, whether that's a workplace or a book club, etc.
Yeah.
That's just going to be automatically accessible once they create a community group
Okay.
or a team on the website.
Okay. Thanks. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Okay. Yeah, so go ahead with the public.
Right. Jeremiah?
Yeah, thanks. Guess I'm here to speak for the public. Recently, you know, of course, I love to volunteer. Just please let me know what I could do to help. You know, if you need help doing anything, just let me know. But I've been actually starting to take over the Albany shower program, and I've been helping out, you know, people, certain situations in RVs and things like that. And it's just, you know, seeing all this stuff, you know, I don't know what's going on really about all this stuff, but some of these people want jobs, and they've been asking me, you know, Jeremiah, does the city offer like an hour a day? Can I volunteer? Can I do something? Because some of these people in RVs, they want to be part of the community. They want to be a productive citizen. They don't like living in RV. There's something they want to get out of it. So yeah, so I'm going to have a whole list of volunteers that would love to just start getting involved in the city. And I've started to put that together this week. So I'll have that more next week. But I've got at least 5 to 10 people that would love to just help do something and get involved, and they, you know, to move around and have some sort of direction for their day instead of, you know, trying to figure out, you know, how to pump up a bicycle tire or fix an inner tube or something. But, you know, there's some people that do want to help, and there's some people that would prefer to, you know, have project bicycles or whatever all those people are doing. But I ran into this lady and her kid that lives in an RV, and her son is trying to go to Albany schools. And I went out there to pass out a sandwich and some water this morning. And the little boy, I got 7 years old, something, and they're trying to charge their laptop with a solar panel in an RV, and the battery doesn't work, but he's trying to attend his class, you know? And so there's people that trying to get out of those RVs. Like, what is a kid doing in an RV trying to go to school in Albany? And that's not fair to a kid. And the mother wants housing, you know, they want to do better. So she said, you know, she'd love to, you know, have a job for the city or even volunteer, be part of something, you know, that way that could lead to a job or some network. But there are, you know, volunteers of the community as well, residents. And I suggest you guys talk to the homeowners coalition. Albany has a homeowners coalition, but we're working on creating a renters coalition. We're going to try to call it ARC or something, Albany Renters Coalition. But spread the word to the homeowners coalition. So that's a good venue.
All right, thanks for the ideas there.
We don't have any more hands raised.
Okay. Thanks, Patrick, for the information, the update. This was just informational for us, right? I mean, there's no, I mean,
Yeah, information item.
Like Nick said, a future agenda item to create some plans for taking this forward. So, future.
Yeah. I don't believe Patrick will be at the future agenda items, so if you have any final questions for Patrick, now's your opportunity. But then,
well, Lizzie, you can feel free to share my contact with any of the members, and they can also just, if they have questions later on, or if they are excited about engagement and want to learn a little bit more about, you know, what ways would be effective, I'd be super happy to chat with them as well.
Great.
All right, thanks a lot. Okay. So we'll you want to take it on to the next item, 5.2, staff presentation on executive order
Yes.
regarding EVs.
Yes. Let me. screen. Okay. Great. All right. So for a staff presentation on the executive order regarding electric vehicles, we thought this would be an exciting update for the committee, just an informational item, but I do believe it relates to a lot of the work we're doing on the CAC and in our sustainability division, trying to advance electric vehicle adoption, reduce emissions from the transportation sector, and spur a carbon-free economy. So a little bit of background on the order. It was signed by Governor Newsom on September 23rd of this year. And basically what the order did is direct the state to create a pathway to require that all new cars and passenger trucks sold in California be zero emissions vehicles, and that will take effect January 1st, 2035. Just to be clear, the order does not prohibit sale of internal combustion engines sold on the used car market after 2035, and it also does not prohibit anyone from owning or operating an internal combustion engine vehicle after 2035. What it does do is prohibits car companies and car dealerships from selling internal combustion engine vehicles beyond that date. And I'll go into the goals later, but just quickly, that is in hopes that no new, brand new internal combustion engine vehicles will be sold in California after that date. The order also directs the state to regulate medium and heavy duty vehicles, requiring that they be zero emission by 2045 where feasible. So that's a little bit, not the focus of the order and not quite as strong as the main goal of the order, which is the 2045 new sale, but also weaved into the order. It also directs state agencies to partner with private companies to provide more EV charging infrastructure throughout the state in order to meet demand for charging, hoping that EV adoption goes up. So the reasoning behind the order, it was sparked because it's becoming increasingly apparent that California is facing the effects of climate change today. This is also the case throughout the world. Particularly in California, we've had a massive wildfire season. Even if we haven't been close to wildfires, Albany has definitely felt the smoke impacts. We've had record heat waves. I think we're all aware that climate change is here. So Governor Newsom recognized that, also wanted to recognize that California remains a leader in climate action. California has already established a goal of 100% zero emission energy by 2045. And the goal with increasing EV adoption and banning sale of internal combustion engines by 2035 is to take advantage of charging on that 100% zero emission energy by 2045, and also in the more near term to stimulate the markets for electric vehicles as well as electric vehicle charging infrastructure. So how is this going to play out for Albany? The executive order is definitely supports the goals of both our climate action and adaptation plan and our draft EV action plan that's in the works. Both plans have ambitious goals to tackle emissions from the transportation sector. And as you can see from the graph on the left, in Albany, it is estimated that in 2018, our transportation emissions accounted for 56% of our community-wide emissions. That's also the case for California. It's estimated that in California, transportation emissions account for 50% of greenhouse gas emissions, and also it leads to regional air pollution due to noxious gases, diesel emissions, and particulate pollution, creating smog throughout the state. So As I mentioned, the state goal defined in the order is to have no new internal combustion engine vehicles on the road in 2035. And as the CAC discussed a couple meetings back, the CAC's stated goal is to have adoption of electric vehicles be 100% by the year 2032. So the state goal is very close to this CAC goal, but the CAC goal is, sorry, this should say the CAC goal is the state goal is 3 years behind the CAC goal for EV adoption. So just a brief overview of what the executive order is and how it is likely to affect the city of Albany. That was just a brief presentation. Again, just informational. We wanted to put this executive order on everyone's radar, but no action needs to be taken this evening. But if you have questions, feel free to let me know and I'll try my best to answer them.
Thanks for the update. I love that the California state ended up doing pretty much what we did. And Max, thanks again for your insight into setting the target for 100% adoption with enough time to transition out the inventory of cars. That looks like that's what the state did too. They must have been sitting in on our council meeting or something. So thanks. Yes, Nick.
Well, I was kind of curious. I couldn't find Michelle's wonderful graph that we had put together on, the EV action plan. We had some exterior outside of Albany impacts, and one of them was the state taking exactly this kind of measure. And I mean, did they do it sooner or later than we thought they would do it?
I'll check. It's on the Google Drive, so I can take a look. Yeah, Max?
Yeah, thank you for the update, Lucy. It did strike me also as the language was interesting for the trucks to say zero emissions operations by 2045 where feasible, because that to me just doesn't say anything really. Unfortunately, I mean, it just seems like, well, they said, well, let's put something in there to, give a nod to trucks. But really, that to me is very loose language. It's not very strong at all. So, I'm not sure how to interpret that. Do you know how are you guys thinking about that one? I mean, it doesn't maybe directly affect Albany so much, since a lot of trucks don't originate in Albany, but it's obviously a big source of air pollution that does affect us a lot.
Mm-hmm. As I interpreted that, I think the where feasible comes from the advancements we've made in electric vehicles, just passenger vehicles, have been rapid in the last few years. And there have been big advancements in large trucks, but I don't think at the same rate, just because, this is me speaking not as an expert on the subject matter, but I think it's a harder technology to tackle, and not one that's given attention every single day like EVs are. But what I believe the order is trying to do, even just by having that loose language, is to direct the California Air Resources Board to start thinking about it. Because the California Air Resources Board is the agency that will be responsible for developing the plan and the pathway to reach the 2035 passenger vehicle goal. And by planting this as well, I think it's starting to lay that pathway. And hopefully before 2035, there will be an order directing the larger vehicles. But again, this is me speaking just not as someone who's an expert in this subject matter.
I just looked at the graph, and we don't have this specific kind of thing on our graph right now, so we can add this to our in exactly the right place now. So this is good. Any other questions, comments? All right. Any comments from the public?
Do not see any hands raised.
Okay. Thanks for the update. Bring my agenda back up.
think we're ready for agenda item 6-1.
There you go. Thank you. I was looking,
Yeah.
my agenda got buried under Windows, so.
No problem. Yes, so
Moving on.
Michelle.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me share my screen. You guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So this is a very exciting presentation of our work in progress electrification website. We had a lovely intern over the summer who developed this and made a beautiful format for us and found a lot of information. And since then, Lizzie and I have been working on it and putting on the bells and whistles and bow ties. And so hopefully it'll be done soon, as she was saying. But we just wanted to give you guys a chance to take a look at the basics of what it looks like and to give us some general feedback before we kind of finish everything up. So I'm going to take you guys through a little bit. This is the home page here and just kind of little introduction. And we're going to add a page that just has some information about why we're pushing people to electrify their homes, what the climate impacts of that are, and kind of explaining the reasoning. We have this nice graphic here to help people kind of think through what electrification
And
could
Michelle,
mean in their home. Yeah.
can you go back up?
Mhm.
Looks like you've got a European style plug there, no?
Oh yeah, look at that.
This is a stock photo.
Yeah, we're still working on the photos.
Work in progress.
Yeah, but yeah, if people feel like, if they're sad they can't travel, maybe it'll make them feel whimsical. But yeah, so here is our graphic to help people kind of think through what electrification could look like in their home. Is just sort of to get people thinking and understanding what we mean by electrification. And then this is the real meat of the homepage. So we have a link to this page called Where to Get Started, which I'll show you guys in a moment. And then a series of icons that each lead you to a page that gives you more information about these different appliances. These are the ones we have here: electric panel, cooktops, dryer, water heater, heat pumps, solar panels, and electric vehicles and chargers. So each one of these has a page with a lot of information on it. I'll take you through one of those as well in a minute. This is kind of the hub. So let's take a look at the Where to Get Started page. So this page is really, it's meant for people who want to electrify, but maybe they don't know much about what that means, or they don't quite know where to start, or they just need to get oriented. And so we have a few questions to help people kind of figure out where they might be in the process. So if they need to just replace an appliance, it's helping them see the kind of most common ones and also directing them on where to go to find whichever one they need. This is for people who want to lower their utility bill. So it directs them to the appliances that are going to do the best job of that. And that also happen to be the most important in reducing emissions. And then also for people who want to electrify, but maybe don't have a bunch of cash on hand, they want to start with something low cost. So we have some of the lower cost options here. So this is really just to give people a sense of where they might be and to help them orient themselves with all these options. And then below that, we have a section on electrical panels. And we're actually working with another intern right now who's helping us create a little quiz to help people figure out what size panel they might need for whatever their project is. And this is going to give people information on electrical panels, on upgrading to 200 amps. We'll include some information here as well about getting a professional to come in and help them with, the specifics of what their situation is, help them get oriented. But it's also just to kind of help people get a sense of what the ins and outs of projects might look like, what they need to be thinking about. We're thinking that as we go and we start to see what kind of walls people run into, we'll add more things here. to kind of help people get prepared before they get into the project. So if you guys are thinking of things that you think belong here, you can tell us your ideas once I'm finished. So there'll probably be more things that we add to this later on. And to go back to the home page, so let me show you what one of these appliance pages look like. So here we have the heat pump, and this page starts with a little bit of basic information, what heat pumps are, how they work. Again, just getting people oriented about what this means. And then we have this next section here where they can skip ahead to whichever section they're focused on the most, or they can just scroll down and see them all. And so those sections are rebates, cost, contractors, and permitting. So we have links to rebates. For some, there are quite a few. For others, there's really just BayREN. And we'll update this as they come along. So this will kind of be a hub for people to get that information. And then we also have cost data that covers equipment, installations, and also how it's going to affect their energy bills. So we've got a sort of summary up at the top here, and then more of the detail below. We have a link to BayREN where they can find contractors. BayREN has a really great database of contractors for lots of different kinds of projects. So it's going to direct them there. And then we have a permitting section. We're going to update this a little more as we get more links and documents from the planning department. But this will also help them know what they need to do with the city if they need to do something to help them get on their way with their project. And all of those different pages that I showed you are going to look basically the same as that, just with whatever the specific information about that appliance is. So that's the website. What we've got so far. Like I said, still work in progress, but Lizzie and I would like to know just any kind of general ideas you have or comments, things you think we should add, or any other ideas like that. Yeah.
Yeah, Tom.
Some of this seems duplicative of the platform from the city site. So I'm wondering how you are integrating this to the platform.
You talking about the Carbon Free Albany or the
Yeah.
city website?
Yeah, the Carbon Free Albany, because,
Okay.
you know, we saw in Patrick's presentation what's been there all along, some similar things. So how are you planning on integrating with that?
Yeah, there's definitely some overlap between the two. I think this is a little bit more Albany specific, and unlike the Carbon Free Albany platform, this has, you know, more specific information about contractors and appliances and stuff. We can't do too much to integrate them, but we can kind of cross post essentially. So we'll definitely include information about Carbon Free Albany on here, and try to link the two in that way. But
You links.
there's not, sorry.
Yeah, I'm more thinking about the link from Carbon Free
Direct
Albany
links,
to this, that direction, because if I was just looking on the platform and I wanted to find out about heat pump or electrification or anything, I'd be going to, you know, to those pages in the Carbon Free Albany. I wouldn't go here, which looks like, as you say, there's a lot more detail. So I'm concerned that, you know, we're setting up something that's parallel but not connected. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think this is good. I think it's great what you're doing. I just hate for it to get nobody be able to find it because, you know, they were on the Carbon Free Albany site, which we just talked about trying to send people to.
Yeah.
I agree, Tom, that, you know, and having seen this, this is like a little bit deeper dive than the Carbon Free Albany can do because, as Lizzie pointed out earlier in some other discussion, it can only do what the platform allows it to do. So this is a good opportunity for a deeper dive, but I totally agree. You have to be able to go from the Carbon Free Albany to this and back again. I think linking is a really important part of this.
Is there a way to remove those pages from the Carbon Free Albany site that conflict with the electrification thing? So you just send people directly to this page?
We cannot do that. Kind of as Michelle mentioned and Eric mentioned too, our ability to edit really the skeleton of the Carbon Free Albany platform is very little. We can only add details and remove details. So I think what our plan is on every single action that has to do with electrification, we will link to this page as a resource. Further, I think Carbon Free Albany platform, the Community Climate Solutions platform, Community Climate Solutions really makes a point of doing a deep dive into kind of the narrative about why it's so important to switch from a heat pump heater to from a gas furnace to a heat pump heater. They really do that kind of narrative explanation of why it's important and what it can do. Whereas this site, we're hoping we'll have a little bit of that, but we also want it to be way more technical so we're not losing the people who don't want to read that narrative. So we kind of see, you know, opportunities again to cross collaborate, link the two, but I think they will have to exist on their own, both just because of the limitations of the software and because they're a little bit different in nature.
Thanks. Yeah, Nick?
Yeah, so I back up what Tom and Eric are talking about. I think there is a way you could link. I think putting links in is a way to do it. And Lizzie, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the Carbon Free Albany has the ability for you to put in some places where you can make reference to this and people could link over and join it. So I think that's possible. I think if there's a little redundancy, that's okay, though, although I agree with Tom, you know, if you start having redundancy, you have to make sure you're not saying you're not Xing out what one says with, you know, confusing people. The other thing is, one of the things that's been great about being sequestered at home is I got hooked into this thing called the Climate Center, which has been putting on a series of seminars, and I think I've sent these out to people. And they had one recently on electrification that really was very well structured and had a very good sort of high-level explanation of the strategy that you need to take when you go into electrification. And I think it would be good on this site that people, a lot of this stuff is going to have to happen over, you know, they won't do it all immediately. They can do a few things, but there should be a strategy in it, and certain things it's better to do in certain order. So I'll send that. I think that I seem to remember in my mind there was a really good presentation where this one fellow just went through it very step by step, what the important factors are, what you need to look out for, what technology is available out there. And I think it would supplement this, not that you would link to it, but that maybe it'll give you some insight on maybe a section on strategy so people understand, you know, they just don't scattershot, do a bunch of stuff, but there's important ways to approach this, and that they, you know, what leads into that is also establishing a budget and figuring out how you're going to pay for it. So that's great. I think it's a great effort so far. It's really nice.
Yeah, Max?
I just echo what Nick just said. In terms of the duplication or overlapping with the other site, I think I understand that consideration or concern. I would say also that, you know, there are a lot of kind of you know, people who like to get into details in Albany, and you know, a lot of, you know, even technical people. So having more than one website is not necessarily a bad thing. especially if it's targeted for our city. So I like to look at a lot of websites whenever I'm looking at anything, like, to take care of my dog, or, my little spot on my arm, whatever it may be. I like to look at like as many websites as I can find, actually. But anyways, I think that, there may be a way to handle it within the outreach to say, this is a portal, this is a guide, maybe like a site from the city to say, these are different sites. This one has a nice video. This one is our carbon neutral site, which has a lot of teamwork platform. And then this is like a nitty gritty technical deeper dive site for those who are interested. So it could potentially be complementary and fit together like that. But a couple of comments just for what you shared. One thing is, it just strikes me that, we do have this property owner versus owner, or renter versus owner question for all these things. I don't know how that's addressed, but just a comment. Also, I think, within these guides, I think we should have something on energy efficiency versus electrification, i.e., things like insulation and, attic insulation, wall insulation, things that are addressing the building shell versus electrification or fuel switching measures. In other words, if somebody has a budget, maybe it's 5,000, maybe it's 2,000, maybe it's 10,000, then how should they spend it? Because I think for me, it's not totally 100% clear, because as we saw in our earlier analysis two years ago, that from the energy retrofits, people may not save that much. So if it costs 10,000, you're saving $120 per year, there's no payoff really. It takes like 30 years or something. So, something in there to say, should I, retrofit my home and get a lot of insulation upgrades, or should I get a heat pump water heater? Or what are the trade-offs or the considerations there? I think that could be helpful and informative. The other thing I would say is that you have a section for electric heaters featuring low initial cost. And while that may be true, those can be inexpensive to buy. The operating costs can be much higher on a per unit of heat basis, just because of the high cost of electricity and the fact that electric resistance heaters are just using 1 unit of electricity for 1 unit of heat. So there's no heat pump efficiency gain. So you might just consider adding some language to that effect.
Eric, real quick, it sounds like we might be transitioning to discussion. I don't see any hands up, but we might want to make a call for public comment.
Okay.
A hand shot up.
Yeah, Tom.
Oh no, I mean a public comment hand.
It looks like Tom has a question.
A question?
Just to clarify, Max, I think your first point went to my concern about, people making a decision, because I think the Carbon Free Albany site helps with that. And it even has a button for renter-friendly measures. So I think the concern would be that we don't necessarily want staff to recreate that kind of a decision tree, because this already seems like a huge amount of work that you've already done. I, again, just like to, if somebody gets to that point, that there's enough links to this so that it'll take them here if they want a much more in-depth look. But I think it's good.
Sarah, do you have a question? Comment?
Oh yeah, I just had a quick question. So are we, was this just for electrification, or are we planning on making more in-depth websites for the other areas like transportation and water, or just for this?
That's a great question. Lizzie might be able to answer that better than I can. I don't know of any plans for websites in the future, but.
I like that idea. I will say that this has been quite an endeavor. This website is about, I would say, Michelle, 5-6 months in the making, and four staff people working on it. So I think there are a lot of opportunities to do more education on the web. I'm not sure. We don't have any plans at this time to do websites like this for other areas. But I do appreciate that idea. I like that idea.
All right, so yeah, let's go ahead and open it for public questions and just, yeah, and then we'll go back to the committee here.
Great. Jeremiah.
Hi, thank you very much. So yeah, this website is very good, and she was right. It'd be good to have other things for water as well. So yeah, you guys have been working on this for a long time. It looks wonderful. I agree with, replacing all these fossil fuel powered home appliances. The only thing, I'm not going to take up my full 3 minutes this time. I'm just noticing a lot of these homes, still have the gas furnace, that wall heater, and that pilot, light is always on, and there's still a lot of gas in homes. So maybe if we're having new construction, building homes or remodeling, things like that, where we do implement policies to where they should be or could be start, appliance as well, and everything like that. So, and this website, if we want to advertise it more to get it more in the community, we could put it on the big bellies, or Facebook or all these social media things. So if we can get a social media expert to help just distribute the link to this website, because that's what it is. You just want people to click on the website. So we just got to get that link out there in the public, maybe at the post office or something. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Jeremiah. Before we go into discussion, I just want to remind you we're at about 9:25 right now, and we still have one more item that we need to do tonight for the agenda. So we can go to, sorry, we got a moth in here. Some discussion, but I think we should decide if we're going to extend the meeting, right? So
Yeah.
are we extending the meeting for 15 minutes? Any objections?
I think you have to take a motion.
Okay.
You can make it.
I make a motion that we extend the meeting by 15 minutes.
Second.
Want to take the vote? Or is that enough?
I'll take the vote.
Okay.
Just in case anyone's listening. Committee member Breeding?
Aye.
Vice Chair Choi?
Aye.
Committee member Cooper?
Aye.
Committee member Peterson?
Aye.
Committee member Way?
Aye.
Chair Larson?
Aye.
Motion carries. Meeting extended.
Okay.
I'll also note that if you guys come up with any other comments or ideas, feel free to email them to me and Lizzie later on as well.
Cool. I just wanted to say that it looks great, and I appreciate the effort that went into it. And I think just making sure that we get those links, that'll be a good way to have people drill down. Any other discussion you want to have on this item? Any?
I think our goal for the committee was to just get general feedback, not necessarily any small items, but a general sense of you like it, and we should continue working on it. And I think we have some good feedback to work on, but yeah, if anyone else has further feedback, let us know.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Good. Max?
Yeah, I mean, when I think of home electrification, I actually think of the EV and the transportation, because it could be both supply and demand. So it could be, the Brilliant 100, or it could be a solar rooftop unit. It could be electric heat pump. It could be electric dryer. It could be electric car, because that's becoming part of your house. It's drawing energy from your house. It's plugged into the grid. So, and also I think, if you put in the electric vehicle into the mix, and if you're actually able to use it most of the time, then your fuel costs will be much lower, and especially if you're charging it at night. So if you put all those pieces together, then if you're ending up paying more for, say, your heat pump space heater, which you won't really use in the summertime at all because you may not need much air conditioner, then that savings from the electric vehicle could potentially offset the electrification of your home. So I do feel like it's where we should be going is trying to think holistically and as a package, and not just separating them. I know that it may be beyond the scope and out of scope at this point, but just in our thinking, I think that can be important.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that's something I think like on the where do I start page or potentially other pages, like Member Peterson was saying, we could do a more holistic approach for the people that are looking for that. So thanks for that.
All right, thanks. So we can move on to the next item.
Yes, we have Claire Griffing. As of today, our previous sustainability and resilience manager. Today was her last day with the city. So it's with heavy hearts that we send her off, but we would like to honor her with a proclamation of appreciation. So let me share my screen. Okay. A proclamation of appreciation to Claire Griffing for her service to the City of Albany. Whereas Claire first joined the City of Albany in 2010 as an AmeriCorps Fellow working on waste and recycling programs with Albany schools, and whereas Claire worked with the Sustainability Committee / Climate Action Committee on numerous projects, plans, and programs to make Albany a more sustainable community, and whereas Claire has experienced implementing not one, but 2 climate action plans and energetically managed development of the 2019 Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. And whereas Claire was a significant contributor to the city's general plan update completed in 2016. And whereas Claire led the city's creek and waterfront planning efforts, including the preparation of the comprehensive Albany Neck and Bulb transition study and design of Phase 5 improvements to Codornices Creek. And whereas Claire was instrumental in the City of Albany becoming a member of community choice aggregation, East Bay Community Energy, which has allowed the city to dramatically reduce overall greenhouse gas emissions. And whereas Claire's expertise in both sustainability and public information has resulted in well-written and beautifully designed outreach for the Albany Sustainability Program. And whereas Claire has been an exceptional mentor and leader to multiple interns and 4 AmeriCorps fellows. And whereas Claire's ability to run a flawless virtual meeting has helped the Climate Action Committee to continue meeting throughout the COVID-19 shelter-in-place order. And whereas Claire's presence at Climate Action Committee meetings will be deeply missed. And whereas Claire's expertise and dedication to sustainability, waste reduction and recycling, communications, and public service are an inspiration to all around her. So if the committee would like to make a motion to adopt a proclamation of appreciation.
I move to adopt that. That's really beautifully written. Fantastic.
I second.
We do have a member of the public that raised their hand, so maybe we should do that before we pass the motion.
Okay.
Jeremiah.
Hi, thank you. Yes, I just want to honor, this person as well. And I believe I may have met this person at the creek over by the village at the end of the Gilchak farm doing some study years back, 2-3 years ago. And it was about cleaning out all the branches down in there and making sure the water flowed correctly. Yeah, this is a great proclamation, and I'm so thankful that the city does this to honor people and their time and all their achievements in the city. So I just want to second and third this motion that maybe this proclamation could be displayed somewhere in the community, a plaque or something, as a remembrance, or a library or the city hall or some sort of community, maybe the recreation, where we get a remembrance wall to where, you know, their plaque could be up for a month or a year, quarter or something, to where the public can go see this at the wall at the library or somewhere where someone else could read this, not just here on this meeting, but that way other people could see things like this. So I hope all of you up there on these councils get a proclamation someday and get honored for your achievements and all your hard work and diligence in the community. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Okay. So I have a motion by Committee Member Cooper, seconded by Chair Larson, to pass and adopt a proclamation of appreciation for Claire Griffing. I'll do a roll call vote. Committee Member Breeding.
Aye.
Vice Chair Choi.
Aye.
Committee Member Cooper.
Emphatic aye.
Committee Member Peterson.
Aye, aye.
Committee Member Way.
Aye, aye.
Chair Larson.
Aye, thanks a lot.
Motion carries. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you all. It's been a real pleasure.
I miss you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claire.
Enjoy Portland.
You'll be missed.
Right. Claire, you're welcome to stick around, but I can put you back as an attendee.
Hi, Claire. Good luck.
All right, so we're down to future agenda items. I think we had the idea of the community engagement for the carbon-free Albany. Like you said, probably not this next meeting, but make sure we have it on our future agenda items. Any other future agenda items? Any suggestions from people? Nick?
Where we were having reports back, I know the climate act, the EV action plan group is still meeting. And I just don't want to lose track that we need to report back on that periodically.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Well, it looks like we are at the end of the agenda, so I will adjourn the meeting. Thanks everybody for your input and participation tonight. See y'all later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.